Well, thank you so much for having all of us here. This is an interesting topic. It is incredibly controversial, but equally interesting. And if a regulator was here, he'd probably be very worried about what's going to be said today, which is why I'm fascinated about this. Mark, I want to start with you. You were painting a picture earlier, and I just want like a bit of a recap. What do you and this entire community really think about when you think about integrating AI and DePIN?
I think it comes down to centralized AI and decentralized AI, right? And DePIN has a definite role to play, in my mind, in decentralized AI. I actually get this question a lot, right? Like, what is decentralized AI? And I don't necessarily have a great answer. I think the best way to explain it is to look at what centralized AI is, right? Centralized AI is AI controlled by one single entity that has the resources and the power to purchase all of the necessary pieces of the AI puzzle, right? Get access to the data, get access to the compute. They can have a bunch of really intelligent scientists producing the model, and then those three things come together in an effective way to produce a really capable model, and then they can use that model to accrue more power. And eventually, if they are the winners of the race, they have some ridiculous aggregation of power in a way that, you know, arguably puts them in kind of a borderline nation state perspective or more. So that's what kind of centralized AI is. I think decentralized AI is just the opposite of that, right? What is not that? And I think in many ways, we just really want what is not that, right? If power accrues in the way that we expect it to these centralized organizations, and these centralized organizations are making the trade-offs that they need to make as public and profit-driven organizations, then maybe that's something we don't necessarily like, right? So decentralized AI, I think, is something that's critical. I think to get there, DePIN plays a really important role from a compute perspective and more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because just for those who don't know, there was something known as the Decentralized AI Society, which was just launched. Coindesk has actually written an article on it. The idea behind that society is to make sure that the tech giants, the big tech, don't control AI or even DePIN for that matter, and that's their objective. One of the questions that I asked their founder, Michael Casey, and I want any one of you to jump in, is that even possible to actually act on that?
Yeah, I would say this fully decentralized AI actually for now is kind of infeasible because of how decentralized network is. You need to communicate with each other, and there's a lot of overhead. So in terms of like the GPU that's needed, it's probably 10 times needed from now, and the internet bandwidth is probably like 10x from now. Then you'll have a fully decentralized AI. But what we're looking for, I think, is called a sufficient decentralized AI. So there's still like man elements in it, not like fully decentralized. I'm not sure if that's like possible, but at least like in the near like 5 to 10 years, it might take some time to get there.
Yeah, I think this is a good time to bring in Luki. Luki and I were just chatting, and effectively, Luki, you can tell everyone what you do and what your community does. But if I could sum it, you're providing data to developers, but at the same time, you're taking feedback from the demands of the developers and figuring out what is it that you need to get, and you're using DePIN and AI at the intersection of that to kind of get it, right?
I'm glad you paid attention in our conversation. I thought you didn't pay attention. So what we do is we standardize the data processing, and so that the developers are able to fetch data from different blockchains and from different ecosystems in order to build projects or even train AI models. And we also have our flagship AI model as well by utilizing all those different data so that we can produce a better crypto pattern for analysis and insights. But one thing that I do want to mention about DePIN, DePIN is not just about infrastructure. What we have talked about, that's why I'm so passionate about this panel and also this event, is that we started to talk about data. What kind of a data, what kind of a decentralized data that we need, what kind of AI models or what kind of projects are there. So we started to talk to projects who put edge nodes on billboards. We started to talk to projects who put equipment on the roof to detect weather. We started to talk to projects who actually wanted to incentivize the different contributors to provide those specific data for other, like for different business models, different dynamics. So I think this is why I'm so passionate about the DePIN and AI piece of it, is that you can contribute and you can get incentivized for contribute either infrastructure or data in order to provide a better future for just science in general and humanity.
I think the first question that we were referring to, and Mark alluded to it, he said, he wasn't completely pessimistic, but he wasn't completely optimistic when we talked about whether it's actually possible to take on the Apples, the Microsofts, and the Nvidias, and take some power away from them to give it to the decentralized community in a way. And you're saying you want to talk to projects. What they are going to do, use their power, monetary, regulatory, and be like, you don't need to talk to projects. You just talk to one of us, or at least four of us, the big tech. So what's your take on that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, I mean, Mark, you can jump in, and I think you get it, what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, in my mind, I don't think that at the moment that decentralized AI has the ability to compete directly with centralized AI. I think that's primarily, and that was your question, right?
Well, yes,
Are we able to get there?
but what she's talking about, and I'll come to you now, you said somebody has got to talk to these projects. Anyone coming up with something to do with solar or anything else, you said we have to talk to them. But my point is that what usually happens, and history tells us, these big tech companies, they drive all the communication traffic towards themselves because they control everything. So like, how are you going to battle around that? Because nobody is going to want to talk to you. They're all going to want to talk to Apple, Nvidia. That's what I mean. Does that make sense?
Yes, I can share just my small little knowledge regarding the this industry in Web3 is that rewards and incentivization, and everyone has a slice of the pie. So we're not competing with the big giants. We actually had an event with Google Cloud. So they provide great technology for us to query the data sets in order for developers to use. So we're not competing with them at all. We're just collaborating with them so that the incentivization of the different data sets or nodes is taking place. And we have professionals to design those token economics so that we can reward those contributors. So right. I'm not saying that we're competing with the centralized entities, but we are collaborating with them and utilizing their technology to enhance and optimize how we can do it together.
Yeah, so it's more like it's possible that there's collaboration and perhaps complementary behavior between the two. But Max, it's interesting. Your role has been on building a global network of ecosystem partners. So you're kind of getting a sense from all the communities out there, decentralized or centralized, and you know exactly what they're thinking. Which way is it going right now? Are they excited about DePIN and AI, the intersection of it? Are they also feeling like the monopoly is going to remain with big tech? Are they thinking collaboration will happen? Are they thinking collaboration will happen in a way in which it will effectively be, we are the small child and they are the big brother, and we have to accommodate to their requests?
Yeah, I think very good question. Question that could fill maybe hours here today. I'll keep it rather short, and I'll start by touching on what Luki mentioned earlier. I think we should not confuse things here, right? Because on the one hand side, you have decentralized AI, but a lot of the projects that Yuki is talking to, that we are talking to, they're not necessarily looking into AI, right? They might be looking into storage, data availability, these kind of things, but not every DePIN project necessarily needs an AI integration, right? I come from a background of community building and growth in the crypto scene. So my team and I, we've been building a platform called QuestN, which is still today one of the largest growth Quest community platforms with more than 12 million wallets all across the world. And from that kind of perspective, of course, we know a lot of projects also from the gaming, from the finance, from the wallet kind of field. And additionally now, of course, also from the DePIN field, which is something that we kind of started to truly focus on, I think, earlier this year. We've been kind of learning about DePIN, taking a look at it for several years now, with some of the early projects being in Europe. I'm based in Vienna, and we had a lot of like real estate stuff going on there. We had a lot of decentralized car sharing services as well that were very like crypto based, crypto financed, crypto incentivized. And for me, those were like the key things in DePIN. And that's also
You're talking about use cases now.
use cases,
Yeah,
yes. Because for us, like DePIN is not just something, you know, that's happening in a cloud and something that's happening and people cannot understand what is it, how does it happen, how can it
Got it.
improve my life.
Yeah.
But actually, that's why we kind of now, with our new project, GM Network, decided to focus more on the consumer side, give people something that's very graspable, that they can touch, use, and where DePIN can actually have a benefit in their daily life.
I'm coming to examples, but I think, Jeff, you had something to say about this previous conversation, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say something about decentralized AI, in the terms of is it able to compete with centralized AI. So I think for now, I fully agree with Mark just said that it's very hard for now to do that. But in that term, if I put it open source AI as the foundation of decentralized AI, which is, and open source AI is actually, we're seeing like it is catching up with closed source AI. Before we think that this is kind of impossible, but with the time where there's Llama 3, there's Gemini launching, we're seeing like this progression. And open source AI is like getting the traction, and there's only limited data out there. For closed source AI, they have to, you know, maybe acquire more data from other people, data providers.
Yeah.
They probably spend like 1-2 mil for like 0.1 boost of performance, which is not like feasible for them. So like open source AI in that sense is catching up, and we're like seeing it like flourishing, and it can potentially like boost the decentralized AI like realm.
Okay. Luki, you want to say something?
I just want to piggyback on what Jeff was saying, open source AI, because we've interacted with a lot of developers, and at the very beginning, Chainbase's journey started as like a SaaS product. So we kind of making those on-chain data programmable and accessible, but it's more like centralized project. Then we had developers approach us saying that, is it this open source? Can I see the docs? How are we able to enhance and fork it? So we're like, whoa, that's actually a big demand, that open source is a big thing for the developers. So they want to understand how those different documentations and the codes are programmed. So I just want to piggyback on that. It's not impossible, but open source made it possible.
This is for all four of you. Just can you throw some examples out there, simple examples of how DePIN has been used to actually enhance AI systems?
I think, yeah, in our case, we focus more on the health and fitness area, right? And the way we use AI is we have, on the one hand side, third-party devices, which could be something like an Apple Watch, a Garmin, a Fitbit. We also have our own tracking devices, which is this one right here. And what we do is we gather the data, and we have a large enough community to start out and do federated learning, where we have, you know, many different users that try to train their own models, have a personalized AI health advisor, and then at the same time contribute to a larger model that helps to make interpreting this data even more precise, less biased, and gives infos on, you know, making it kind of closer and closer to an actual medical device, right?
If you guys have questions, raise your hands. I'll try to come to you in the middle of the discussion.
Yeah, I think there's lots of DePIN solutions that are benefiting AI. I mean, DePIN's a great aggregator of data, right? And data is very necessary for AI. We have a weather-based DePIN, like WeatherXM, for example, that's providing a huge amount of weather data that makes weather AI modeling more effective.
You can predict the next Dubai token situation.
Yep, that's it. We've got kind of solutions like Aethir, where we aggregate underutilized GPUs, adding net new supply back to the market, making it more accessible for builders to access critical GPU resources. And then you've got kind of stuff like the Aethir Edge, right? Where we give people the ability to purchase a piece of AI infrastructure, sit that in their home, and then receive rewards for contributing that back to the network. So yeah, huge amount of kind of opportunity in the space.
Okay, so I think one word that really sums up the problem that is there, that is a common link between AI and anything to do with crypto, is this very cool word, trust. And here's the thing, what we are seeing is that, for example, there was a hack 2 months back in India. It's called WazirX, the crypto exchange. 235 million or something like that was hacked out of it, right? So there's a trust deficit still. And anyway, everyone's scared of what AI will do to us humans. Can you tell us a little bit about how is it that DePIN can ensure that AI systems are, well, manipulation-free, perhaps?
I think to completely convince them will be very difficult, right? Because like even in the early stage, like mistakes can still happen. But what DePIN is doing very well is it gives people also hands-on use cases where they might not, think about the technology that much. Because if I'm just going to a crypto event and I hear this, I hear that, but I don't understand most of the words, I'm not going to believe it, right? But if I see the device in my home, right, what Aethir is doing, for example, if I can earn from it, if I can constantly profit from it, and I learn step by step, maybe I think then it's also graspable for a larger amount of people.
Yeah, I think in general, decentralized or distributed networks generally have less single points of failure, right? And I think when you're talking about exploits or hacks or vulnerabilities in a network, generally those single points of failure are what hackers or bad actors try and target.
Yeah, Mark, I'm just stepping in right now because I've heard this for the last 3 years, that this product of mine and that technology has single points of failures or less single points of failures. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're not demonstrating that. The track record is suggesting that even MPC is not completely secure. So just give me a sense of what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is that there's so many benefits to centralization, right? There's so many benefits. It's generally faster, more performative. You can give your customers the things that they want, arguably in a more convenient manner, right? Particularly when you talk about AI, right? Big companies, they care about speed and performance more than anything else, right? And trust in the sense that, okay, this physical infrastructure is sitting behind a locked door in a secure facility. They're more interested in that type of security than they are in maybe the fault tolerance or the security that comes from a truly distributed network. So you really have to have an audience that shares the same values as you.
That's putting a lot of trust in a lot of people across many regions.
Hard to convince a big company of that.
Yeah, I wanted to come to you because developers, when they reach out to you, are they asking this question about trust?
I will take a step back regarding the developers. One thing that since I mentioned that we're also training our own model, and we work with the professors from NTU over here in Singapore. The first question, and also I asked the question to Aethir's team too, is that what's the stability? Because the professor who told me and educated me was if it's unstable, if the GPU is unstable, all the data could be lost. All the models, like the previous training procedure, could be lost. So a lot of those bottlenecks could create manipulation. And it's not we are doing something wrong, it's because right now we're still trying to figure out how to make the whole DePIN industry efficient, productive, and also stable for all of us to train different models or even build projects. So that's one thing that I think we need to focus on too, is that the stability and connectivity of those different DePIN projects, and see if how feasible it is for us to actually train mass amount of data.
So we got many challenges. We got big tech saying, you guys can keep doing what you're doing, but we're going to come and take you when we want to take you, and we're going to take control. The second is what you just said, trust, right? We have to focus on that. But at the moment, the focus, as it is always the case with technology, is on innovation, figuring out what my product is and how I want to place it, make it user-friendly. There's a third one, which is even more interesting to me, because that's where I come from, regulation, right? They haven't figured out AI regulation. We've figured
You're
out
the
DePIN.
only person that finds regulation more interesting than innovation.
Well, I'll tell you why. I like that you said that. I was there on January 6th when Donald Trump supporters went inside the Capitol. I've been to northern Iraq to cover the impacts of ISIS. And all of that was political decisions. And political decisions overshoot anything that innovation does. They shut down companies like this. So you guys can keep doing what you want to do, but I know a politician tomorrow will be like, good night. That's why. But anyway, regulation. And this is not so much about what regulators will do, because that question is just too far off. They don't even know what DePIN is right now. We don't know what DePIN is right now. My question more is, AI's regulation is a difficult maze, a puzzle to solve, different jurisdictions. How do you perceive this intersection of AI and DePIN getting the rules globally around it that suit everyone? Because this is a global technology. It's going to require a developer in India and some other part, and then some other part.
I will just share my small piece of knowledge over here as well. I used to be a banker. I was a banker in Denver, Colorado for 10 years. So I used to go to Washington, D.C. to lobby banking regulation. And what I was witnessing was things are moving really slow as far as regulation goes. Second is user privacy, data privacy. That has been a big thing. I think this is something that a lot of DePIN and AI projects, even just a crypto in general, while we're trying to solve ZK, TEE, and FHA. I think that's the FHE, I think, but the encryption.
FHE. Yeah.
Right. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make all the data safe and secure and private for even training or data sharing, so that we make sure that the sensitive data is not being exposed. I think that's the first thing that we should be focusing on too, is the data privacy. And the second is that incentivization. So that's one thing also is a hot topic and sensitive topic is the rewards. Is this something that we're able to do, and what the value is for the token? Is this a security or not? I think those are the things that probably we need professionals to figure it out. But at this moment, with Chainbase, we don't really face that kind of a regulation, because we just standardize data processing for developers to process data from all different those data.
Yeah, but let me ask you, if we go back in time and Alexei reaches out to you and says that, I want to create something at the intersection of AI and DePIN, and I'm going to name it Tornado Cash Part 2. Would you talk to him about regulation, or would you just help him with whatever he needs? Because he's not asking you about regulation, right? He's not asking you about trust.
If that's not his question, I'm not providing different answer.
Yeah, fair enough. But at the end of the day, one has to remember that the guy is right now in jail for something he produced, right? That's why we're asking this question, that there's a fear amongst developers. I was in Berlin recently for Berlin, ETH Berlin, and there was a real fear. They were asking the question about identity crisis. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just want to address on the regulation part. I think the current space, like regulation is falling super far behind from technology. The technology advancing so fast, as in Web3, it started at 2009, and as of now, there's no well-formatted structure. We see SEC try to regulate Web3 space with their current existing system, which in my point of view doesn't work well because it set up a lot of different, presidents, but those presidents doesn't give people a clear rule of how to abide by like these crypto laws. And we see like Europe trying to throw out a format system called Mika and try to regulate the sex. And so definitely happy to see like what's gonna happen next, but I'm kind of like worried of what happened if regulations, technology is advancing so fast that the regulators don't even have time to kind of ban all of the new like innovations, because regulations takes a lot of time to like to progress to format a well like structured system to protect people.
Yeah. There's also GDPR, as you know. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, a couple, maybe quick anecdote first. I was sitting having breakfast with a friend of mine the other day, and he pulls open the LinkedIn app, and he shows me this button, and he goes, "Did you know that LinkedIn is taking your data to train models?" And I was like, "What do you think they were doing with their data before they had models?" Right? Like it's almost like a red herring, right? This new button you have to kind of opt out of that makes you feel like your data is more secure. But I mean, I was on a panel a couple months ago with a guy who wrote the algorithms that Google uses to scrape all the data from your emails, right? Like we're so worried about data going into kind of AI, but we've been trading away our privacy and our data for well over a decade now. But I do think that when we look at regulation in the AI space, it's a really particular challenge because AI, first of all, is advancing so quickly, but second of all, the upside to getting there first with AI is just outrageous, right? Arguably the most important race to ever have won. So the idea of regulating here and in any way addressing the broader technological landscape in any meaningful way, I think is misguided. I think that if you regulate California, people will just set up in Texas, right? Like Elon Musk is doing. If you regulate the US, everyone will just set up in China or India or whatever. Everything will continue to move forward because people can't afford to not win that race. I think the only way that that's pretty much it. I mean, if you get to a future where the maybe distributed training is much more of a capable technological kind of endeavor, right? Where actually powerful compute models can like exist and be trained across like regular people devices in a way that competes with centralized training, then it's actually like fundamentally impossible to regulate, right? Because these networks are just distributed out, being trained on pretty much everyone's laptop.
Yeah.
So I don't know, regulation's hard for AI in particular.
Max, I was coming to you right now. You can answer about this, but the question that I want you to also answer, moving the conversation a little further away from regulation, which industries are really ripe for the intersection of AI and DePIN?
Let me. No battery.
Thank you.
Let me. Let me? Oh yeah, let me now. Okay, cool. It lets me. Let me give you some closing words on the regulation part. First of all, I think I have a great business idea for you, Amitoj. Going back on the like DePIN and regulation thing, you told me you live in Delhi, right? Maybe you can kind of set up Delhi decentralized lawyer infrastructure, right? And kind of have lawyers all across working in a DePIN way to have a common infrastructure of
They
law.
already do that, and trust me, you had that hack that I talked about. They suddenly got Singapore lawyers and American lawyers. in no time.
Right. No, but I'm speaking like on a global scale. But then again, like I think on a global scale, it's going to be different again because you don't have level playing fields, right? From a European perspective, of course, EU is going to be at the forefront of regulating. That's what we love to do. Same with Mika, just like we heard before. But I think the EU cannot allow itself to actually harshly regulate all across because it's slightly different with AI than with crypto, right? Crypto, of course, we've heard there were a lot of issues in terms of scams. That's what the general people know about. But AI, there's still a bigger thing behind it, a race against China, against the US, right? So to get to your next question, what's the perfect industry? Perfect industry for what exactly?
For this intersection, DePIN and AI. Anyone out here in different industries? Let's see what you guys have to say about that. Like, then they can be like, oh, let me go to the solar, let me go to, health, let me go to anything.
Got it. So the way we see it is the perfect intersection is, on the one hand side, DePIN. You have something that is physical in terms of solar. You have your panels, for example, or you have different measuring sensors. AI comes in because over the years, what we've been doing with different kind of smart devices already, we've been gathering tons and tons of data, but we don't actually use that data. Someone else might use that data, right? But we ourselves don't actually make use of it. So in the field of those panels, for example, you might use AI to connect it to weather, right? Have a very decentralized physical infrastructure connected to SkyX, right? That is measuring weather, measuring sunlight, and then kind of iterate or like reposition the panels, right? In our case, we gather health data and we kind of look into the health data, because what people are doing today is, I look at my watch, I've done 2,000 steps, but tomorrow I'll forget about it, right? Nobody's gonna know, like if I ask Jeff, how was your sleep last night? How many sleep points did you get on July 13th? Nobody cares about that. But if you gather it and interpret it and say, hey, over the last couple of weeks, my sleep is getting worse and worse and worse, or my heart rate has been significantly high, maybe I should see a doctor, or maybe I should, run a little bit faster so I can actually improve my stamina. Using that historical data, I think, can give you even more use cases that can benefit your daily life.
And in a DePIN way, which is that runners from all over the world.
Exactly,
Yeah?
exactly. So decentralized, and in some ways, you might also train your own models with your own device if it allows for it.
Got it. Yeah, please, Luki.
Thank you so much. Yeah, just like what Max was saying, that the fitness definitely is a big part of the sectors. But really, in every single business that you are in, there's always data that's needed. There's always some sort of a model. Aviation, you need to train model to
I guess the question is, which industry is ripe right now that people should get behind? Which is the industry that is the best right now suited for this?
I think the industry right now, I see a lot of use cases, a lot of demands for user data. So no matter if it's a LinkedIn, no matter if it's a Twitter, no matter if it's a Facebook, there's amount of data that's needed for training AI models. And we see communities that are getting together to create data DAOs. Data DAOs, that means I give you the rights to control my data. This is my I voluntarily give you this data that you need to train models. So we see actually community members are getting incentivized for providing those user data, and they want to make sure that the user data also is private, secure, in order to be shared. So I believe some sort of a social data analysis is current need for AI and DePIN.
That's cool. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I think DePIN's great at getting net new data, right? That's going to be really powerful for AI. I think if you look at AI more broadly, there's a couple of things that it struggles with, right? One potential bottleneck, for example, is power, right? A couple of years down the road, maybe we have a power bottleneck. So then DePIN becomes really relevant, because if you can push the compute requirements to devices that are already powered, things that are existing in our homes, then you don't necessarily need net new power to the grid to solve that bottleneck. So I think DePIN plays a role there. And then there are increasing use cases within AI for low latency compute, right? So small language models that exist on again, people's devices have the ability to kind of interact more quickly, more seamlessly, less robotically with people. And I think that DePIN will play a role in empowering those kind of instantaneous interactions with AI.
All right. All of them are available. Yeah, final thought? Yeah, 1 second.
Sorry, I just had one last thing to mention about the supply and demand, the computation power that I was talking to the professor I mentioned about regarding the supply and demand. There is definitely a lot of a demand for computation, but not enough supply. So I think when we look at what's currently needed, it's also look at what's shortage, what's in demand, and what is being supplied.
All right. Thank you to all the panelists. These panelists are actually here. So it'll be better if you actually have one-on-one discussions with them. That'll be a better use of our time. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Let's thank the panel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.